In Legacy of Destruction, we got more support cards for what some might remember as an annoying deck, and I don't think that element has changed when you see the end result of all of this, but they are cool cards nonetheless, and they do change the playstyle of a more control-type build to a heavier combo trying to bring out your fusions, and the first card that we have here is a Pendulum Monster Refrain. It's a scale 1 that reads Pendulum Effect. You can target one Melodious fusion monster you control, send one Melodious monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, the targeted monster gains attack equal to the sent monster's level times 200 until the end of this turn. You can only use this effect of Refrain once per turn. The monster effect reads, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Melodious monster from your deck to your hand except Refrain, and if a Melodious fusion monster is special summoned to your field while this card is face up in your extra deck, you can place this card in your Pendulum Zone. You can only use each monster effect of Refrain once per turn. Now this is a really nice card because all of these effects actually do come up, and we're going to start here by normal summoning the Refrain, and then we'll be able to get ourselves our next new card. This is Couplet, Pendulum Monster, scale 9, and it reads, you cannot Pendulum summon monsters except light monsters. This is the Pendulum effect. This effect cannot be negated. If you do not control any face-up monsters other than Melodious monsters, you can add one Melodious spell trap from your deck to your hand, and that's a really nice effect, but you can only use this effect of Couplet once per turn. The monster effect reads, if this card is added to your hand except by drawing it for your normal draw, you can reveal this card, special summon one level 4 or lower Melodious monster from your hand or graveyard. If a Melodious fusion monster is special summoned to your field while this card is face up in your extra deck, you can place this card in your Pendulum Zone. You can only use each monster effect of Couplet once per turn. And this is another card where you actually will be using all of its effects, and we're going to continue here by activating the Couplet, and now we can use its effect to get ourselves our next new card, and this is a fusion spell called Melodious Concerto. It reads, fusion summon one fairy monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand, field, and or Pendulum Zone as material. So being able to use them from the Pendulum Zone is really strong, but if a fusion monster is sent to the graveyard while this card is in your graveyard, even during the damage step, you can place this card on the bottom of your deck, then draw one card. You can only use each effect of Melodious Concerto once per turn. So again, another really nice card that helps buff this archetype, and you'll notice that all the cards that we really got were actually impactful, which is nice to see from support cards for an old deck, but we're going to continue here by bringing out our Bacha or whatever it's called, and it takes two Melodious monsters, so really easy to make, and your Melodious fusion monster's activated effects cannot be negated while you control this fusion summoned card, so that alone is pretty strong, but you can only use each effect or each of the following effects of Bacha once per turn. If this card is special summoned, you can special summon one Melodious monster from your deck. It is kind of self-explanatory on how strong it is, as you're just able to tutor anything out that you need, but if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one Melodious monster in your graveyard except Bacha, special summon it in defense position. So we're going to continue here by using its effect along with our two Pendulum monsters in the extra deck, because we were able to bring out a fusion monster. We can trigger their effects, putting them in the scale, and that just means that we have access to a Pendulum summon now, which is really nice as well because this is a scale 9. But now we're going to bring out our Tam Tam, and if you don't know what this does, it's basically just a fusion searcher or a poly searcher, fusion substitute in this build, but we're going to continue here by using its effect. It also has a cool little burn damage effect where you can decrease the attack of Melodious monsters by like 500, I think it is, and then it inflicts 500, but we're going to continue here by then using the effect of the Refrain, and then we're going to be able to target the Bacha. We'll then send away our Couplet, and this is important because you're going to have a few utilities for this card where you can either add it to your hand, then get its effect, or you can send it to the graveyard like this, and then you'll be able to add it back to hand later on in the turn, as you'll see momentarily. But we're going to climb up into Bloom, and Bloom is another powerful card, as we're now going to trigger our effects, the Bacha, and then we'll be able to also get the effect of the Link 2, as we're now going to also be able to use Fusion Spell Concerto to get that draw. So we're going to bring out our level 7, the Shapina, along with the Soprano, and this is your fusion summon card, along with the Shapina, which can get you a card back from your graveyard to the hand. Though funny enough, this can do that too. When it's special summoned, of course, it's not a once per turn, or it's not a hard once per turn, neither of these are, which is really nice, but we're going to continue here by getting ourselves the effects here, and then we'll be able to bring back the Tam, use the effect of Tam, which will get back the fusion sub. From here, we'll then be able to use the effect Soprano in order to fusion summon, as we're going to go into a second copy of Bacha, use the effect of Tam Tam, which will then inflict burn damage, use the effect of the Shapina to get back our Couplet, and this is where you can trigger the Couplet from your hand when you add it to hand off of the Shapina to bring bring back your Soprano. And now we're going to be able to use the Soprano's effect, get back Tam Tam. And now from here, we'll be able to use the effect of the Soprano, fusion summon away into our next new card, Magnificat. It takes 1 Melodious Maestro monster plus 2 Melodious monsters. In quick effect, you can banish any number of Melodious monsters you control until the end phase. Then you can return up to that many face-up cards your opponent controls to the hand. You can only use this effect of flowering once per turn. If this face-up fusion summon card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you can special summon 1 Melodious monster from your deck or extra deck except flowering. And this is a really cool card because it allows you to not lose to Nib, which I think is really important, as we don't really have access into something like Appaloosa here. Baron and Savage are banned now. So having access to this is pretty important in my opinion, but we're now going to be able to Pendulum Summon, then use the Fusion Summon, or the Fusion Sub added back via the Tam Tam earlier in turn, and this will allow us to go into our next fusion, Schuberta, and this is technically just like Magical Musket banished from the graveyard. I think it's the Dancing Needle. You can target up to 3 cards in any graveyard, banish them, and if you do, this card gains 200 attack for each, so you can see how powerful that can be for graveyard-centric formats. But from here, we're then going to be able to use the effect of Tam Tam again, and this is optional. If you don't want to lower their attacks, you don't have to, but we're going to use the Fusion Sub now. We'll get ourselves another draw, and with that, I'll take you on to the next combo. Now, for the second combo, this is kind of like your branded fusion of the deck, Ostinato. If you control no monsters, you can fusion summon 1 Melodious fusion monster from your extra deck using 2 monsters from your hand and or deck as fusion material. And during the end phase of this turn, destroy the monster fusion summoned by this effect, and if you do, all the fusion materials that were used for its fusion summon are in your graveyard. You can special summon them. That isn't really important because usually you go into the Bacha, and the Bacha ends up getting sent to the graveyard anyways for your fusion summon of the flowering, I think it's called. But we're going to send away our Shapina along with the Aria, and this time around we actually will be able to bring out the Aria, as we're going to use the effect of the Bacha, as we're going to bring out our Refrain, use the effect of Refrain for the search, as we're going to get ourselves the Shapina. Now we can normal summon the Shapina, use the effect of Shapina, as we'll then be able to fuse away into the flowering, and this just helps you play through Nib now a lot easier. But we're going to end up using our effect of Refrain along with the Bacha, and we'll be able to bring out the Shapina, as we're going to use the effect of the Refrain. We'll then be able to Foolish away a card, which will send off the couplet, use the effect of the Bacha, or the Shapina, I'm sorry, as we'll get back the couplet. From here, we're then going to use the effect of couplet, bring back the Soprano, and then we're going to use the effect of Soprano, which will get back the Aria, and now we can use the effect of the Soprano, fusion summon away into our Schuberta, and now we can activate the couplet, as we'll then be able to use the effect of couplet in order to search ourselves our fusion spell, Pendulum summon out our Aria, as we're then going to activate the Concerto, and then we'll be able to fusion summon out again the Maestra using our 2 Pendulum Zones, because you can use your Pendulum Zones as fusion material, which is just really nice. Then we'll be able to put the couplet back into the Pendulum Zone with its own effect, and with this, I'll take you on to the next combo. Now, for the third combo, this one is similar to the first, and you can actually do the first combo all over again if you would like to, but I didn't want to do that, so I'm just going to take a different approach to this one, though it will start off the same. We're going to use the first movement solo to bring out our Refrain. Refrain will then be able to get ourselves a search, much like the first combo. This time, though, instead of the couplet, we're going to get ourselves the Soprano. Then we're going to use the effect of Soprano in order to go into our Bacha. Then we can use the effect of Bacha, whatever it's called. We'll then get the effect of Refrain along with Bacha, as we'll then be able to special summon out the Soprano, or the Shapina, I'm sorry, as we're going to use the effect of the Refrain, send ourselves away the couplet. Here we'll then be able to use the effect of the couplet, or the Shapina, to get the couplet, and then we'll be able to use the effect of couplet to special summon out the Soprano, use the effect of Soprano, as we're going to fusion summon away into the flower, use the effect of the Bacha along with the ability to recur now off of Shapina, which will get back the Soprano. From here we can then activate the scale, as we're going to use the effect of the scale. Then we'll be able to add ourselves our Concerto. From here we can then Pendulum summon, as we're going to bring out the Soprano, and then we'll be able to use the effect there, as we're going to be able to recur back our Bacha from the graveyard, which is really nice as it's just a free resource back into the extra deck. So we're then going to go into our Schuberta, activate the Concerto to get into our Bacha, and from here we can pass on to our opponent, but not before we do get our Pendulum scale back again, which is just really nice as you're able to spam out your fusion monsters with 3 1-card combos. Again, if you want to take the approach of the first combo, you can, but I wanted to show that if you aren't playing the Tam Tam and the fusion sub, you can still pretty much do this. For this next combo, I wanted to show one that just needed 2 Melodious monsters on board along with a discard. It's because you do play some Garnets, and some of them are able to special summon themselves out, which is really important because it gets you into full combo, essentially. So we're going to use the effect of Bloom. We're going to bring out the Shapina along with the Refrain, and then we can use the effect of Refrain, as this will get us a search. We're going to get ourselves the Couplet this time around, as we're going to use the effect of Couplet, bring back Cannon, as we're then going to be able to activate the Couplet, use its effect, which will be able to add ourselves the Concerto. From here, we're then going to activate the Concerto, as we're going to be able to fusion into the Bacha. The effect of Bacha along with our 2 Pendulum Scales in the graveyard again, which is just really nice because now we have access to a Pendulum Summon. We're going to continue here by using the effect of the Soprano to get back level 3, I forget the name of it, the Sonata. Then we're going to go and use our Refrain, as we'll be able to send away our Aria. So another combo where you can get into Aria, which is pretty nice. We'll then be able to get it back to hand with the Shapina, use the effect of the Soprano, as we'll fusion summon away into the Flowering. From here, we'll use the Bacha in order to get back the Shapina, as we're also going to use the Concerto in the graveyard for the draw, as we're then going to use the effect of the Shapina to get back the Soprano. So you can see how this can be pretty insane with all the capabilities to get your cards back, but we're now going to Pendulum Summon, as we're going to use the effect of the Soprano to fusion summon. Something else I would like to point out is that make sure that if you ever have Aria along with Refrain, you're going to want to use the Refrain send effect first, just because Aria protects everything from targeting, and this does target to send. So just something I thought I'd point out, but we're going to then special summon out our level 3 so that we can get that attack boost. You can also Pendulum Summon it. Now, for this final test hand, I just wanted to show a combo that had multiple cards in it, or kind of like a regular hand where you may have multiple starters and you can really change your plays depending on what you want to do. You'll notice that throughout all the combos, there were multiple avenues that I could have taken through each that I just didn't because I wanted to show them all through different combos. This is just one of those, but we're going to continue here by normal summoning our Refrain, then be able to add ourselves the Cannon, as we're then going to special summon out the Cannon. The reason I special summoned out the Cannon, searched out the Cannon, was because it could get us into our Link monster, and that just makes the turn much more crazy, especially since we have the Soprano for the fusion summon as an extender to get into our Bacha, and Bacha can do everything from there. But we're now going to pitch the Nib, bring out the Shapina along with the Couplet, then use the effect of Soprano, which will fusion summon into Bacha, use the effect of Bacha along with the Couplet and the Refrain in the extra deck, as we'll be able to get our scales now. We'll then special summon out the Aria, and you'll see that I am going to link away into the second copy of Bloom, and like mentioned in that last combo, it's because we have the Refrain, and we do want to send away card from the deck to the graveyard with the Refrain. So we're going to use the effect of Refrain, send ourselves the Couplet, then we'll be able to use the effect of the Shapina, get back our Couplet. It will then trigger in the hand, as we'll be able to bring back one of our Melodious, which will be the Soprano. And again, just insane that we can do that, because now the Soprano lets us get a card back to hand again, and now we go from 2 cards in hand to 4. The ability to Pendulum Summon as well, but we're going to then be able to fusion summon away here into the Flowering. We're going to use the effect of Bacha to bring back Shapina, and then Shapina can get you a 5th card back to hand with the ability to Pendulum Summon 3 monsters now, along with the search for Concerto that we still have. So just insane how we're at 6 cards now, 2, and that's just insane to me. But going to now Pendulum Summon 3, we're then going to be able to use the Soprano in order to fusion summon into our Schuberta, as we're then going to special summon out level 3 Sonata, and then use the effect of the Concerto in order to fusion summon again into Maestra, or the Bacha, or whatever it's called, and from here we can pass on to our opponent. With all of the combos out of the way, we can get onto the deck profile, and there's not many options that I want to talk about. There is Herald of the Orange Light if you would like to play this, but I don't know, it felt like the monster count of the Melodious was too low for me to really like it too much. And then there's also Evenly that you may want to side deck for the crossout, even if just that. And I mention it because even though you do have the Flowering in order to banish your stuff, there might just be times where you do want to actually keep your board and interact with your opponent. So then there's also the Bystials that you can play, the Bystials that may also hurt you as you are playing a light deck, and I know that I haven't seen many light decks since the conception of Bystials. Now that we have a pretty good light deck in my opinion with Melodious, I don't know exactly how good, might be tier 2, might be on the top of Rogue, but I think it's definitely a solid deck. deck. I think this is something to worry about as well. Then of course there's things like Chaos Angel. If you do play Bystials, this is also much easier to make and you can get it with both lights and darks. With all of that out of the way, just want to talk about some of the extra flex options that you may have, and I think it's just these two. I think that the rest of this stuff you actually do want to play. The deck kind of builds itself because you want your 3 Ostinato and your 3 first solo, 3 first movement solo, and though they do conflict, the fact that they're not hard once per turn is really strong in my opinion. As far as the Ostinato, the first movement solo is, but having that ability to play through Ash if you have both of them is really nice, as they both get you into combo and they're both very powerful. So even if you end up keeping one in hand, it's not terrible because if your opponent outs your board, then you can still make it. And then on top of that, you can also banish your own stuff till the end phase so that you can then activate your first movement solo, build an even bigger board, get yourself back cards in the end phase, and continue from there. So just a lot of cool things that you can do. Outside of that, I think I showed everything in the video, so I'm just going to get onto the card by card, and we have the 1 Shopina, the 1 Area, the 1 copy of Cannon, the 3 copies of Refrain, the 3 copies of Couplet, the 3 copies of Prosperity, the 2 copies of Concerto, your 2 just to kind of be able to search it and hope you don't draw it. And we have the 1 Fusion Substitute, the 1 Tam Tam, we then have the 2 Soprano, which I do like 2 Soprano, just because I think it's a really solid card, being able to recur cards from the graveyard, get you into a fusion summon, and of course you don't want it to get hit by something that banishes from the graveyard. But we then have the 1 copy of Sonata, the 1 solo, or the 3 solo. We then have the 3 copies of Ostinato, the 1 Called By, the 2 copies of Crossout, the 3 copies of Imperm, the 3 Veilers, the 3 Ash Blossoms, and the 3 Nibs to round out the main deck. For the extra deck, we have 2 copies of Bloom, 2 copies of SP, Typhon, number 41, Dweller. We then have our 2 Flowers. We then have the 3 copies of Batcha, the 1 copy of the Bloom, which does take a Maestro, which can be pretty awkward to make, so that's why you didn't see it a lot going first, because you usually do want to go into the Flowering, but it can come up. And then we have the 2 copies of Schuberta to wrap up the deck profile. So for everyone who's made it this far, I'd like to thank you for watching, and for the 700 plus subscribers. I truly appreciate your support, and now that we've monetized the channel, giving us access to supers and memberships means that more awesome stuff is on the horizon. The channel membership, just click on the description below, and there will be a link that takes you there. You'll also notice a free Discord link that I've made for us too. If you want to support me as a content creator, even if you can't donate supers or get a membership for the channel, clicking on those thumbs up and subscribe buttons help a lot too. For those wondering, I do plan on making updates to the channel as the support on the channel grows. Anyways, I hope to see you on the next one. It's Bones, signing out.